Well, then I will begin by saying hello, Heather Birrell.
Hello, Julie Wilson.
How are you? This is your latest book, Mad Hope, from
It is.
our good friends at Coach House.
Mm-hmm.
Are these toads or frogs? I can never tell the difference.
Frogs, the frogs.
They're
Yeah.
frogs. Okay. And thank you for talking to us at 49th. This is for our Festive Fest initiative, which is to recognize that while there are great festivals, literary festivals across the country, of course, most people can't get from one coast to the other coast. So we're trying to bring the authors straight to the reader, and I'm the lucky duck who actually gets to talk to you. So first of all, congratulations on your latest book. Do you want to introduce this collection for us?
Sure. Mad Hope is a collection of 11 stories, and they're linked, I guess, I mean, the title is relevant in that all of the stories have at their center a kind of crazy or an excessive hope against the odds. And I guess that's the thematic through line. The characters themselves are pretty different. Mm-hmm. So I was looking at the idea of hope, of mad hope as in, in the more colloquial sense, like mad hope, a lot of hope, and then also insane against the odds.
So when you started writing this collection, did you know that you had that theme in mind, or was it just something that you noticed you were just writing to an awful lot?
No, I didn't actually. I don't write that way. I wrote the stories individually, and then afterwards, when I had enough collected, I started looking and trying to see what the kind of the kind of thematic connections were. And I feel a little bit uncomfortable having a title story. So giving the collection the name of one of the stories, because I feel like it puts a lot of pressure on that particular story, and then that it becomes emblematic of the collection. So I wanted a title that was not necessarily the title of one of the stories. It does come from one of the stories, but I thought that was a sort of nice way of encompassing something that was in all of the stories, but wasn't necessarily sort of concentrated in one.
Right. And what about what is it about the short story that you like? Is it the pacing of the short story? Is it sort of like sustaining a certain emotional element? What do you like about it so much?
It's funny because I have a day job as a high school teacher, and I was just teaching this today. I was talking to my writer's craft class about short stories and trying to sort of elicit responses from them about, what is a short story. And I think a lot of them felt like short story is confusing, mostly.
Really?
Because we talked about it being sort of plopping you down in the middle of the action, and that if you're not used to having enough setup or having things tied up neatly, then it can be pretty disconcerting for people. And but that's what I love about it, and that it feels intense, it feels compressed, it feels like, what it lacks in breadth, it totally makes up for in depth. And there's this kind of feeling like you're right there with the character at a really important juncture in their life that they might not even know is important. And there's something really voyeuristic about that. And then I think also, I had a thought, it's fled. Something about being with there's a quote that we talked about today in class by the British short story writer Jackie Kay, and she talks about short stories as a moment of belief, and that's what I think. I think I can suspend my disbelief, that is, more easily with a short story than I can with a novel. And I suspect it's because I'm so immersed in the character, and I love that. And I love the little kind of shifts of consciousness that you get in a short story. It feels, I don't know, I just get more of a rush from it than I do from a novel. Not that I don't love reading novels, but there's something, less intense about it, I think.
What grade do you teach?
I teach grade 9, grade 11, and grade 12. I'm at a full-year school, so I have 6.
Do you think I'm trying to think about kids that age, and I mean, if you're like a really young kid, I mean, your imagination just goes like everywhere. You
Mm-hmm.
know, do you think there's something about kids at that age that they think that if they're going to write, it has to be something that's worthy, like they have to prove that they know something? You know, do you think there's a fear that if they write something that's so intense and so in the moment that somehow it's going to show them up that they don't know anything?
Yes and no, because I think that they do. I mean, they do want. They have this feeling that maybe their own lives aren't important enough to put in a story, and the
Right.
kind of day-to-day stuff that feels, important and interesting to us, and that there's that shock of recognition when you read something like that, isn't necessarily as exciting for them. They do want to escape, but then on the other hand, when they write, they're like, queens and kings of the confessional, because so a lot of the time there's a lot of that, emotion that comes out on the page. So
Right.
I don't know. I think a little of both. It really depends.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about your own relationship now with well, an instructor of sorts, I suppose, your editor, Alana Wilcox at Coach House. I've been likening editors of late to sort of producers, music producers, and that musicians will get to that point in their career where they have like they've identified a producer who has a certain sort of like sound or tone or ethic or something, and they really want to work with them. Was that your experience working with Alana? Like, does she offer you something that you just feel like you can't get there without her aid?
She does, and it's funny because I don't know. Whenever I think about working with Alana, I just think it's so comfortable, and she's quite hands off in a way, but she has this way of sort of guiding you where you almost don't know you're being guided, and she's never a nag, and she's not reactionary in any way, and she'd probably be great to be married to, actually. She's so calm, and she has a way, of convincing you of something without, shoving it down your throat. And I felt that definitely during the editorial process. And I just felt she was very, calm, but also compassionate. And that when I was doing final edits, especially on this book, I was doing edits when I was very pregnant, and then I was doing final edits when I had a newborn, and I hadn't had a lot of sleep. I was, I would go to the cafe down the road and in between breastfeeding sessions to try and get stuff done. And she was just great in terms of deadlines and kind of, just push me gently. But I think that because it was a short story collection, and because a couple of the stories are 10 years old, so they've been around for a while. They've been pretty worked and worked again. So she definitely did work on the story sort of line by line, but she also had a great vision for the book as a whole that I don't think I would have had otherwise, and she helped me to see how they fit together. Mm-hmm. And she did this with my last collection too, she pushed an extra story out of me. She just, said, I think maybe it needs another story, and I went, ha, ha, ha. So I'm working, I'm very pregnant, I'm not going to write another story. And I ended up writing another story, and in both cases, one of the stories that I feel most, like I connect to most viscerally, maybe just because I was under the gun, but she was really, really great that way. Yeah.
And now you're going to Vancouver for the Vancouver Writers Fest to present the book. Do you consider yourself to be an introvert? Is it pleasant for you to present to audiences, or is it right outside of your comfort zone?
What we're doing now is a little bit outside of my comfort zone. If
Even
I have
this?
to read from work, answering questions about my work I find hard sometimes. But the reading from my work I love, because I feel like, it's something that I've worked on for a long time. And I have a script, and they're my words, and I'm very comfortable with them. And I almost feel like it's my chance to give them a little extra, whatever, is inadequate about them or wasn't quite there on the page. Maybe I can give it an extra dimension when I read. I do find answering questions about the work hard.
Then I A.L. Kennedy, the writer, also does stand-up comedy, and the writer Alex O'Lean was in Scotland and saw A.L. perform, and she was saying that she just couldn't imagine putting herself in that situation. And so I've been asking an awful lot of authors lately, if you had to perform in one way other than reading your own work in front of people, what do you think it would be?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Magic tricks?
Oh, I don't know. You know, I love A.L. Kennedy, by the way. And I have had to push myself to perform more because I'm a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is performance. But if it was in another discipline, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd be a dancer or a synchronized swimmer.
Synchronized swimmer, like pairs or solo?
I did do synchronized swimming.
There we go.
So, yeah, I would do a little synchro for everybody, a little interpretive Mad Hope synchro. Probably a duet. I think a solo would be a lot of pressure.
Who with?
Oh, good question. I don't know. I have to think about that.
Okay, cool. We might think about it on your behalf. Maybe we'll start a hashtag on Twitter. Who will Heather synchronize with in Vancouver? Well, listen, if that doesn't sound like a great place to end, I don't know. So, thank you so much for your time today, and continued success with the book. And I hope you have a great time in Vancouver.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll talk again soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Don't hang up.